Hello there. Welcome to Total Solar Eclipse chart. So I weighed in a little bit on this, of course, at the last eclipse, the lunar eclipse. But now we're going to really deep dive into my take on this solar eclipse. You've probably been hearing lots of stuff and watching lots of videos if you've ended up at mine. So some of what I say might be a repeat and some of it might be hopefully new. But as I also am trying to process what this huge energetic shift is feeling like, I'm trying my best to get insight to share with you of how to handle these intense times. Not everyone's feeling it, or they won't admit it, or they want to. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's because it's spring." No, no, it's bigger than just a seasonal change. But a lot of people are good at that, right? A lot of people will just say, "Oh no, I ate something funny last week," whatever they want to say, or I think it's just stress. Yeah, it is stress, but it's deeper than that. For those of us that are extra sensitive, we all know that there's many shades of gray and discernment levels and all kinds of subtle differences in these energies. The lunar eclipse felt completely different than this one. And I'm making this video now. It is officially the 4th of April. So we still have a few days to go, and it's so intense. For the last, I'd say, yeah, at least the last 4 or 5 days, there's been like a buildup in everybody, right? We can all feel the buildup. You could blame that on the media hype, the fear, yeah. We're all susceptible to that and the fear that creates in the air, or the hype. But we may also just be literally feeling on some level these pulls, because this is major. Like, this is a total solar eclipse isn't going to happen again for 80 years. So that, why wouldn't that be a big event? When the sun is blacked out on the earth, like imagine before lights and electricity and technology, and how terrifying that would have been for people before that didn't have our technologies to understand it. The sun's gone dark. Oh my Lord, the world is ending, right? Apocalyptic feeling. So I think sometimes the media lets people try to recreate that apocalyptic feeling. I don't believe in apocalypses, really. And then something might prove me wrong and we'll all be gone, but I don't really. There's been too many things and over the years that people think are apocalyptic and then they're not. So I don't buy into that, but I do honor that there is a buildup and an important shift that we'll all feel on some level. And it just remains to be seen how that'll play out globally, or what'll happen during this eclipse. Ooh, now I suddenly didn't mean to black myself out like that. I was just seeing a bit too much sun in my eyes. Okay, that didn't do that on purpose. All right. But because I'm an astrologer, I'm looking at, well, where does it fall, and what house does it fall in my chart, and in the chart of the countries that I live in, or in terms of what does Aries represent, and there is an important buildup in everybody's chart on some level that can provoke a big decision. And a lot of people won't be thinking about it or ruminating on it the same way that we might. And so people can go, well, yeah, something happened. Yeah, I felt a little different. But a lot of people minimize. They either don't feel it or they don't want to share. But for those of us that do, that's who I'm speaking to now. So Aries is all about the self. And as you'll see in the chart, there's a cluster of planets in Aries right now. And Mercury is retrograde. Yeah, all the same time. So Aries is the sun and the moon obviously will be conjunct, or in the same degree, or they wouldn't cross perfectly and cause an eclipse. They're also in alignment with the lunar nodes and with Chiron and Mercury. And so when there's so much Aries going on, there's a sense of, what is myself? Well, who am I? What do I stand for? If I were all alone, who would I be? What is that essence that is me? Do you know? Do you know who you are? And if you do know, will you stand up for yourself? Will you take action, take risks, take care of yourself, protect yourself, whatever? Now, we all know a lot of people with trauma do not do that. You may not really be so clear who you are. You may have had to do so much caretaking or parentification, that you lost a sense of yourself a long time ago. Or you might be in a job or a role that requires you to bend yourself around to keep your survival going, but maybe it isn't quite you. So you feel like it could be a loss of self in that. Sometimes, we fit in groups. We belong in a group, and that could be your family as well as friends or your community. And it's not quite a fit. And so even if there's nothing wrong with any of it, you or them, it's not a fit. You can feel like there's this misalignment. I'm not myself. I'm not true to myself. So there's a huge push about being true to yourself and about being honest with yourself. And that's where it's provoking a lot of aches and pains. Hearing a lot of people complain about their aches and pains are worse the last few days. Their sleep is awful. Lots of anxiety and tossing and turning, a lot of headaches, and Aries rules the head, the blood. And so, I've gone through my own breakthroughs with this, and there's still more to come, because if you're healing from anything with your family of origin, it's a lifelong process, layers by layers. And so we look at, where does Aries fall in your particular chart? Now I'm burning the sage now, and I wanted to just encourage you at this moment to surround yourself in light. If you want to close your eyes before we begin, just very quickly, if you can see yourself surrounded in a bubble of light. If that's too hard to see that all around you, maybe a column works better with you. See yourself standing in a column of light. You can see it in front of you and step into it, or if it's easier, see it swirling around you. Or you may just find it easier to visualize that you have like a halo of light around your head. Especially important since Aries rules the head. Let's visualize a halo of light around your head. And just ask Archangel Michael to clear anything in, on, or around us no longer for our highest good today. And protect us in the light as we go through this eclipse phase. Because a lot of energy is unleashed when people unleash trauma, or if there's events that occur. And we want to be in protection and in the highest energy possible. Okay. All right, let's take a look at this chart. Okay. All right. So, as we have always mentioned at the beginning of my videos, take a look at the configuration and the balance of the planets. Take a look at how clustered, how intense this chart is. It looks simple because there's few lines, but that means that everything is laser focused on one area. even though it's spread out a bit between Pisces and all the way a bit into Taurus. But this is a real cluster, stellium. When multiple planets fall side by side, it's called a stellium. And when it's all in one sign, it's accenting everything in that sign. And this is why everything is about Aries. You have to understand what Aries is and stands for. So this chart, of course, is drawn. I drew it for Montreal this time versus New York City, which I usually do. I usually draw it for New York, even though I don't live in New York, just because it's a, it's a main point on the Eastern time zone. But I drew it particularly for Montreal this time because New York City is not on the direct path of the eclipse, but Montreal is. And since I live here, I decided I would draw it for Montreal. So if you are in the Eastern time zone, it's not going to be too far off it, really. It's slight differences, but just to locate it, I wanted to do that. So Monday, April 8th, 2:17 p.m. in the Eastern time zone, you're going to see, well, if you're out there, but you better wear your protective glasses and be careful. If you have any kind of eye problems, honestly, I wouldn't recommend it at all if you have any eye problems to try to look at it, but that's up to you. Personally, I'll be staying inside. I also will be staying inside because I don't like crowds and the way that crowds provoke certain behavior. And when it's an eclipse and it's the sign of Aries, no thanks. Not going to be out in a crowd. Too much potential for volatility. It could be amazingly bonding too in some places. It'll depend, but also here we tend to get just so much cloud cover that it wouldn't surprise me if it was like foggy and we can't see it. But hopefully we will see it. I'll be content to just know it's passing over and see my window go a bit dark and without staring at it directly. So the ascendant in the Eastern time zone is Leo, which is sort of helpful in a sense, because even though the lines aren't drawn, as you can see over here, we've got the sun and the moon and Chiron all at 19 degrees. And then we've got Mercury up here at 24 in Aries and the North Node at 15. So all of these planets technically are making a trine, which is a good thing, if you remember, long blue line, to the rising sign. So that makes me a little bit happier, just because people will try to find a way to express that energy. And there is an outlet for it because the trine is in Leo. If it were a square, it would be awful, okay? Because people would be trying to express that energy in a way that was conflictual, and that could bring on more conflicts or internal problems or things breaking down. But this is a trine, so it's actually a great time to express yourself once you, I'm going to still caution because Aries can be very impulsive and can be a truth teller, can be great sometimes, can be really blunt other times. So and Mercury is retrograde, so I'm still going to caution you about just run out there and gotta be me and express yourself the moment you have your eclipse epiphany, if you have one, or your pent up anger or whatever's coming up. Be careful of it, but at the same time, it is good that there is an outlet of expression for it in this chart. So at the same time, though, take a look. It's sort of saying here that all of that, Sun, Moon, and Chiron are making a square to Pluto. It's pretty wide. We're at 1 degree Aquarius. It would have to be all the way at 1 degree Taurus for a true square. And it's like 11 degrees away. To me, that's a little bit wide, but because it's so intense, perhaps it can be felt. So this is where it's tricky to predict, because if it were a tighter square, we would be concerned. If an Aries eclipse squares Pluto, it would be not pretty. It would unleash a lot of destruction. As it is here, it's not as tight. So it gives me a feeling, of course, we're going to see some levels of that unfold, as we already have in the news. We've already seen a barge break it, collapse a bridge. We're already hearing that CERN wants to do nuclear testing during the eclipse. We're hearing, now I don't have any direct source of this. I'm going with multiple people I'm hearing from on YouTube, including credible ones like other credible astrologers also confirming. So otherwise I wouldn't say any of this is true, but I'm hearing it so often. NASA has plans to launch missiles into the sun, into the eclipse that day, for research, whatever that is supposed to help. So as you can already hear, there's an explosiveness about that, right? And I mean, when I tune in, all I feel is a big fire, a big boom and a big fire, which could be anything. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh no, this, the solar flare of the century is going to knock out the grid. No, I'm not going to say that. Is it possible with those planets? In the worst case scenario, yeah, but I'm not feeling that. Could it knock it out some places? Yeah. Doesn't mean the whole globe goes dark. But in some places it might. Another thing, nuclear testing. Well, I kept seeing a fire and a boom before I heard that news, so maybe I was seeing the nuclear test. It doesn't mean the whole world is going to blow up. It could, for all we know, there could be a major fire anywhere. There could be, and we're already in, multiple wars on this planet. So that all makes sense depending where you are. But this is based on Montreal, or our area, and the square is not that tight. So I don't get a strong feeling of super destruction here. It doesn't mean nothing's going to happen, but not like devastating. However, and this is another reason I don't want to be out in a group, is this is still a volatile energy. Could this mean if there's thousands of people out watching the eclipse and they get overexcited? We all know what that can bring in a crowd. Could bring vandalism, could bring assault. That whole Aries energy is very much like a very, determined football team kind of energy. Like it can go in there like a pack of wolves, and very, very masculine energy. And when that all comes together, we also know what that can bring. That can, it's ruled by Mars, planet of god of war. Sports can fit it too, though, because sports are like a modern day warfare, in my opinion, with football and hockey, and just, a way to have, one side against the next, and strategy, and unleash all of that energy and, potential violence each time. There's something of that nature that has to come out. And you might be feeling it, even if you're nowhere near a hockey player or don't want to be in the middle of a crowd, but you might still be feeling your anger coming up from something current, something long ago, and we're also in the season of spring, which is represented by the liver, and the liver and the gallbladder are all about anger and frustration and indecision. And so it can throw you off that way too, literally, physically. The liver is related to the eyes. If your eyes, eclipse looking at, there's all these symbolisms You're looking directly at the sun in an eclipse that could affect your eyes during the season of the liver, and all of this anger, it all goes together for me somehow. So if you find that you're getting more headaches or tension or aches and pains, maybe you can ask yourself, am I angry? Am I frustrated? Is there something that I haven't been able to share or express in the world? And again, the Leo rising means it could be, maybe it could help you find a way to do that. And it doesn't have to come out as angry outbursts or telling people off. It can come out very in a confident and direct manner too. You know, it could come out as in a balanced way. It could come out as, okay, you realize you're angry about the way somebody's behaving or treating you chronically, and you very quickly say, you know what, that isn't going to fly anymore. I like that treatment. Stop doing that, okay? And now you see how I said that? That was still clear, but it's gentle instead of right, like yelling. So we have to watch our anger right now during this eclipse. I feel it's accented. Chiron added to this mix is the wounded self. Chiron is the wounded healer, who is a centaur, so half horse, half human, who was meditating at the top of a mountain sort of thing one day. And he was like an experienced healer, and he was bothered by the noise down the mountain during his meditation. And he got up to see what it was about, and he was shot with a poison arrow. And the poison wasn't enough to kill him. It was only enough to keep him permanently wounded. And then the rest of the myth goes that, which god was it now? I can't remember which god or goddess offered him the chance to either to die and remove the wound, therefore, you know, sacrifice himself, or, you know, remain wounded. And I believe he sacrificed himself. I'll have to bone up on my mythology again, but that's pretty much it. And Chiron, wherever it is in your chart, represents your core wound. And so if the core wound is yourself, again, that emphasizes people that don't feel they have a strong sense of themselves. So right now we really have to ask yourself, like, do I feel I fit? Am I really being true to myself? Do I feel I can really be my true self amongst my friend groups, my family, my community where I live, my job? The job, obviously, it's a little harder. Everybody has to play a little bit of a role, or there's certain things in different industries. You can't just gotta be me everywhere you go. You know, if you're in a bank, you can't just suddenly wear pajamas to work if you think that's being you. But but with your friends and your family, we need that. We need a certain amount of knowing who we are to be able to know where and with who you fit. And then there's the other layer of, like, you might know who you are. You might be very clear what you think, what your values are, what you like and don't like, but you might not be being true to yourself. Would be another Chiron and Aries kind of wound. You're not honoring yourself by not speaking your truth. You're not helping yourself by ignoring your body, ignoring your intuition, and remaining somewhere or consenting to things or going along with things that aren't you. So this is what it's really challenging us to heal right now because of Chiron and the wound and the eclipse. So, you know, we'd sort of expect, if this was a person's chart and we see that the sun and the moon, your core personality is connected to Chiron, I would expect somebody with a major wound of self a person who's constantly putting themselves out for everybody to their detriment, a person who, when you say they don't remember their life or their childhood, they don't feel good anywhere, they might be just numb, you know, because they don't know, they don't have enough fighting spirit and self-care. And I would expect that person would have lived through a lot of difficulty. And if the eclipse comes up, I would expect a crisis where you just cannot not be yourself anymore. You cannot lie to yourself anymore. And so if this is the way it plays out, that is not pleasant, but that is a healing crisis, you know, versus a destructive outside event. And so that could play out in the world as well, or this is Montreal, could play out in the city, but something is begging to be listened to and heard, a side of you or a side of life, something that we can't ignore any longer, could burst to the surface. It just can't be suppressed anymore. It has to be looked at, it has to be talked about, and it has to be healed. And it is putting yourself out there on the line. Like, if you just, you know, I'm trying to think if there's any movies that match that as a theme, but I'm sure we can think of some. But if you don't relate in your own life yet, you might be able to think of somebody that you know who just lost it one day, just couldn't deal with something any longer and said, tough crap, or I'm leaving, or goodbye, that's enough, or take this job and shove it type of thing. So I'm expecting to hear people just suddenly quitting, being fired, sudden breakups, sudden announcements, protest movements, anything where it's like, enough's enough, and this wound has to be addressed. I can't do it any longer, and something erupts, you know? Now we also have the North Node over here, so that is also encouraging you to do that. The South Node is in Libra. It just wants to stay where it is and keep weighing things and just, you know, making sure it's fair and going back and forth between different sides in between, instead of saying that's where I stand. Well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? Well, she thinks that. Oh, well, he said maybe this, and you go on and on and on with this mediation, but that's not what's being asked right now. The North Node in Aries is like, no, you need to step in to your integrity and your warrior mode, which doesn't negate Libra's, you know, abilities and tendency to want to mediate things, but it's not about integrating yourself and others. That's the South Node. We're moving away from that. We're moving into a chapter of embracing who you are and what do you stand for, and are you authentic? So this is really tough work for a lot of people, especially if you have trauma, if you're an empath, if you're a pleaser, if you have built your life around doing any of that, and it's not really who you are. You might have a tantrum, you might have a temper outburst, you might say, I can't do this anymore. But it's a great time to reinvent yourself. Once you've had your epiphany, whatever that plays out as, it is, the line isn't drawn, the aspect, but it is trine to Leo, which means it could be expressed outwardly in a very good way. So I overall get a pretty good feeling about this eclipse for people's personal growth. Globally is another story. Yeah. And like I said, I can't predict a whole globe at once. It would take another 2 or 3 hours in the show to go over everybody's every country and every city and try to predict. I mean, it's too vast. But we can definitely expect to see these themes play out in different parts of the globe. But I just really want to reassure people, I do not sense any apocalyptic thing coming. I sense something big enough that it reroutes. What does that mean? Well, decisions on you know, how things play out politically with Palestine and Israel. If anything changes on that front, that has repercussions for many. So right now there really is too much brightness in my face. My gosh, this is so weird. I have always done my filming here with this same setup, and it's just going, it's even making my face look like there's an eclipse going on. The light is so weird right now. Okay, anyway. So it's too bright when I do this, and it's too, I'll leave it like this, but it's like, okay. So we also have these planets down here in Pisces. And they're weak, like I mentioned in the last video. Mars in Pisces is weak. Saturn in Pisces is talking about the lesson of understanding that we are all one. Mars in Pisces is very sensitive and watery and foggy and intuitive and not at all what, you know, Mars rules Aries. War, action, determination, impulsivity if needed, bravery if needed, courage if needed, strong will. Mars in Pisces is not. It's passive. It's doesn't want to decide. It's feeling everything out. It's moving about, you know, sort of vaguely or invisibly. It's somebody who's going to just go down the hall and space out in, you know, watching video games instead of addressing a problem. It's somebody who might, on the positive side, retreat into their spiritual practices or their art if they're feeling conflicts, but it's more about escapism and going, you know, escapism or going within. It could also be the person that's running out there, helping others in the best sense. Mars and Pisces could be very caring and altruistic and volunteering and taking care of people. So that's the highest side of it. But it's on that level. So that actually calms it down slightly, because if Mars were in a conflictual position or a stronger, more stubborn sign, it could aggravate all of the Aries energy. So this is actually diffusing the Aries energy a bit, which is another reason why I say I don't feel anything apocalyptic, because this is there to just sort of dissipate. And Mars is together with Saturn, so that's even stronger of a like, it's like a crushing action on Mars. Mars wants to be free to just sort of go do it without, you know, to follow through without Saturn going, are you sure? Maybe you should wait. Is that really the right way? Did you think this through? So Saturn weighs down on Mars, so therefore Mars doesn't act. Even if Saturn were in Aries and Mars were in Aries, which would make it more, you know, fiery and warlike, Saturn would still kill the buzz, would still restrict it. So when they're both in Pisces, it's even softer. So I don't expect that will play out as destructive stuff. It could though play out as covert stuff, because Pisces doesn't like to confront conflict, so it won't. It'll have a good intuition about what's going on, but it's not going to come up and fight very often. It's going to figure things out behind the scenes. And so that whole behind the scenes feeling, plus Neptune is also still in Pisces, and these three planets are all in the 8th house, which is secrets. So on that level, is there something going on behind the scenes? Something secretive? Yes, sure there is. There always is. But will it be revealed? Hard to say. But Jupiter and Uranus are in Taurus at the top of the chart, and Mars and Saturn are sextile, which is a good but not like guaranteed aspect. But Jupiter and Uranus are at the top of the chart, where usually things do come out in public. Could something be blurted out in public? Yeah, but it's not a super strong feeling. It's like a low possibility. It's not, to me, doesn't feel super strong. But in our own lives, could there be, again, on the side of healing in our own lives, with Mars, Saturn, and Neptune in the 8th house, there'd be a lot of heavy soul searching. There could be secrets that come out. In Pisces, they might come out in a gentler way, or they might be extremely emotional and hard to talk about. You know, you might have a lot of dreams about people or the past, or I find that's already increasing. Other people have been telling me about a lot of dreams too. And it just takes a lot of inner work to reflect on what all these dreams are saying to us about the subconscious, because Piscean planets are already just so sort of connected to the one and the subconscious anyway. And then it's in the house of like secrets and subconscious as well. If there is anything that is revealed secret wise about any political person or country or people, you know, it'll have a very deep and maybe a bit scandalous or very depressing side to it. Now, once in a while, Pisces planets in the 8th house can relate to the occult and mysticism, and some people could have mystical experiences under those influences. Thus, you know, the psyche is open. The eclipse is intense. It's allowing a lot to come through us that might not normally. So maybe you have a weird dream, but you have to realize, well, wow, oh, gee, actually that fear or that memory was actually really important to me, or boy, I forgot that part of my life, and now I'm retrieving it to process it. So, you know, a mystical experience can be like an epiphany of consciousness. You're raising it, or you're aware of something that changes the way you see life or yourself. That all does work well with the Aries identity crisis eclipse type of thing. So yeah, whatever comes out, like even if we believed anything that comes out, that's the other thing too, because we don't even believe announcements that by the monarchy anymore. We're like, it's faked. So if something gets announced that is like secretive, covert, scandalous, heavy emotionally, reveals something taboo, will we even believe it? Yeah, we're in a weird world. We're in weird times. So we can be grateful that Pluto is not squaring Jupiter Uranus. And it won't. It will trine, but it's not going to square. Because that could have been, if Pluto were squaring Uranus, that could be much more of an explosion. But it's not. So, so hopefully you're piqued and intrigued and ready to do some inner healing. Let's take a look now at the tarot for this eclipse. I'm going to burn some more sage again. And I encourage you yet again to visualize yourself surrounded in light. See that you've got a halo of light around you. Just if you can see the halo, just see if it's clean and clear, if there's anything foggy or there's pieces missing, and try to fill that in or clean it up. All right. So what does the tarot say for this eclipse? I just am so blown away that I cannot get the lighting on this video. It's like I'm literally, there's the eclipse. That's how it works. There's a sun. Oh, it's back. I'm not trying to be silly. I did not plan this. This is so freaky. Okay. Our first card is the 8 of Pentacles. So that card says prudence. It's a card of Virgo and of details and of caution, right? Prudence is caution. Erring on the side of caution, planning things, going into the details, letting things be slow and gradual and be patient. So that's an interesting first message. The second card is of a Tower. Nah. Well, that sucks. I'm not going to put it in a global perspective. I'll put it in a personal perspective. The Tower is the time when you've been warned to be careful, or a lesson has come up over and over and over, and you're not listening. You're not learning it. And so now it is forcing you to learn, usually by taking something away. And it's usually a humbling moment. But if anything extreme happens to you, anything upsetting happens to you, I find the best medicine for the Tower card is to accept that you have to stop, or you have to leave, or you have to face the music about something that it's showing you. The Tower comes up in your job and you hate it. You've probably hated it a long time. It didn't just show up now as a crisis. The Tower, it's important to look at, how did this build to this point? And you will feel upset at yourself or other people. How could I let this happen? How come I didn't stop it before it got to this crisis point? We all can be hard on ourselves that way. But I think most of us are going to go through that at some point in your life, where you just keep sailing along, hoping it'll get better, or on autopilot, or avoiding doing the thing that you know you should be doing, and then it creeps up on you. So if you're going through that, the best way is to just step back and say, was this really such a sudden problem? When did I see this coming? When did this problem truly start? And how do I, how long is that? And how many things added to that now I have to face or feel or undo or correct? Yeah, because the Tower ultimately liberates you as well. it will take something, it'll sort of knock you down. And so at the same time, you have to face something. So now you're free. See it more as like breaking you out of a jail, breaking you out of a denial. And the next card that follows is you get your clarity. You get your mental will back. You get your mission back. That's a beautiful card for self right there. The skies are clear, the waters are clear, there's clouds, but there's sun, there's glowing on this sword. There's even the sign of Pisces as the hilt of the sword. You see? You are going to get crystal clarity if you allow the Tower message to hit you and change what you need to change. It's about honoring yourself, being honest with yourself. I think I'll leave it at 3 cards again, because I want to focus more on individual sign readings. Okay. So let's see, how can we frame things for the eclipse question? Well, I'm going to make it, each sign, how can you honor yourself more? How can you be yourself and honor yourself more? So Aries, we start with you. You're going to feel this the most intensely of, probably of anybody. But yet you are an Aries, so part of you understands this already. So let's just see. Aries, how do you honor yourself more during this? How do you, in life, not just during the eclipse? Aries, how do you honor yourself? The Star, okay. You can honor yourself more by expanding your horizons, expanding your dreams. The Star is, she's got 2 cups, one above, one below, and the Earth is in the center, and then there's a star even further out. So she's aware of multiple layers of reality, multiple places, multiple universes. So for you, you need to expand your mind and expand your reach and expand your sense of self. So if you see yourself as if you're used to seeing yourself as like a local person, you're always at the same places with the same crowds, the same, you go to the same restaurants. I don't know, you might need to expand and meet new people. You might need to meet people that are different from you, who think different from you. If it's a business and you're used to it being a certain way, well, maybe you need new places, new faces, new cities, new companies. So this is really pushing you to expand your mind, expand your horizons, listen and open your mind to people who are different than you. Which is interesting, because then it's not really that you've lost yourself. It's more like a time where you need to expand yourself, to go deeper into who you are and through expansion. Taurus, how do you honor yourself? 2 of Cups. Well, this is the Love card. As we can see, it looks like a wedding sculpture, like a fountain of 2 fish intertwined with the lotus flowers in love. So likely this means expanding yourself by opening your heart to being more loving and allowing more bonds with people. So this would ask you to be examining maybe your sense of armor, or are you protecting your heart all the time? Are you letting new people in? Are you letting your romantic relationships deepen. You know, if it's not a romantic love, then it's a heart-to-heart intimacy kind of love. So it's really saying you need to let that in if you haven't already. And if you have, then you allow it to flow more greatly, more deeply, more freely, with less parameters or controls on it. And I always feel with Taurus like that if you get too close, you feel like you're going to lose control. So it's sort of playing with that, letting yourself get a little closer, let yourself feel slightly out of control, if it means deepening your intimacy. That's a lovely message for Gemini. How do you embrace and increase your sense of self? So you have the 8 of Cups, which is Saturn in Pisces. So as we said, Saturn in Pisces is the lesson of understanding that we are all one. And Saturn in Pisces means a lot of people are very cynical and they don't believe that everything is interconnected at all. They think it's all manipulated. Everybody for themselves. Who cares? Very individualist. And so Saturn in Pisces will often put people in a position where they're forced to learn that we are all connected and we're all one. So if you were going to grow and embrace your true self more and be more authentic, you're going to have to move out of the cynical side of you. It's not easy. So I would take a look at that. Ooh. The light just came for that question. I would take a look at, where are you cynical? Who have you become depressed and cynical about? Could be the whole world, could be just a couple of people. And you need to take a look at where you are actually aligned and at one with that world, that place, that person. And to have compassion for yourself, why you became so cynical, and to have compassion for what you became cynical about. Oh, that's a deep one. All right, Cancers, how can you increase your authenticity, your sense of self? Justice. The lighting is so weird. It's never been like this in my apartment. I can't believe it. Okay. There, now you can see my face. I got a light on me. Okay. Justice. La justice. Well, Cancer, justice means sometimes courts of law. It means major decisions. It can also be karmic law. I don't know whether you've been concerned about what's fair, or whether you need to make a final decision on the justice of a situation that you went through or something around you. It gives me more of a feeling not of weighing everything over and over again and again and again, and actually calling it as you see it. So you might have a deficit or a self-esteem or self-worth issue that keeps getting perpetuated by the fact that you won't just kind of make a final decision on something or someone. Let's say it's, let's say it's an ex that would play out as you're always rehashing the relationship. You're always wondering what you did wrong. You might be blaming yourself, or how come didn't work out that way, or they've moved on and you haven't, and why, or something like that, where you're ruminating as Cancer, you know, about the past and getting emotional about it. When instead, maybe you need to just be a little cool and collected and take a look at the facts one more time, step back and and just decide to call this a day. Either they left or you left, and based on what you knew at the time, and call it what it was. If you were not treated right, call it what it was. If you were not treating them right, be honest and call it what it was. It's like justice is, it's like rebalancing all the facts into something fair and making a decision so you can move on. So letting yourself decide and move on. You've weighed things enough. Wow. It's pretty big, eh, Cancer? Okay. I need some water now. Well, our snowstorm seems to be melting already, which is good. All right. We woke up to like winter white blizzard, looked like not quite ice storm, but some power was out around Montreal. That would be another eclipse thing, by the way. Like power outages could also happen during eclipses, but anyway. We're used to it in Montreal. We're not going to blame an eclipse for more power outages. It's just hydro problems. So, okay, let's see for Leo. How do you increase your sense of self? Seven of Cups, debauchery. Leo, have you been, I want to say, indulging in things? Have you been not eating so well? Have you been drinking extra? Do you have any addictive behavior you can be honest about that you need to shift? Are you dealing with some really murky emotional stuff? Because it looks like, as you can see, this is a swamp. So whatever you've been doing to cope with something that you would rather not deal with, we all do it, but you got to stop it. It's like you need a detox. Something needs a detox in order to set yourself right on track with your sense of self and self-esteem, or being honest with yourself. So it's sort of like, okay, maybe, like I said, maybe you don't like your job, and to cope with that, you've been smoking or drinking a little extra, just riding it out as if something's going to change, but what'll change unless you do, sort of thing. So that it feels like addictive or toxic behavior that's making you avoid something that you need to detox yourself from and get away from. Yeah, you're going to need to really sit with that. That feels somehow not easy to admit. You might see the behaviors, you might not quite understand or see clearly why you're doing it until you stop doing it, you know? So it would be to detox. First of all, for me, I would start with food. I'd start with sleep. I would cut way back or cut out anything that you consider is addictive behavior. If you're on your phone 10 hours, 7 hours a day, if you're smoking, drinking too much, if you're eating too much crap, if you're constantly around toxic people and you're like, yeah, I know they're toxic, but I'm they're convenient, so there you are again. Like anything that you know is toxic. You have to detox yourself from, and then you're going to find there's a lot of emotion under that. But then from there, you will be clear on what you need to do to honor yourself. All right, Virgos, what do you need to do to honor yourself more? Oh, you got the Ace of Cups, Ace of Discs, sorry. It's pretty solid. Well, I like that this is solid and earthy, and this card usually represents money or a business project, or in relationship, it can be friendship. It's like a solid, reliable beginning to something that has like a good basis in reality. And we know Virgo likes that. So that would be the benchmark then. Like, are you involved with or into things that don't have that solidity? That might be where you need to be more true to yourself, because you like this. You love, like, great, this is like this person that I met, these people I hang out with, they're grounded and they're reliable, and it feels like they're friends, and it's all going slowly and building up to something over time, and it feels solid. Can you say that right now? Because if you can't, then that's who you need. Same with job. It's like, great, I got this new job. Everything's above board. I feel clear. There's training involved. The money negotiations are clear. Everything's set. I just have to start. Or maybe I just started and it's rolling along well so far. Feels like things are going to grow from there. Do you have that? Because if you don't, then you need it. So for you, it would be, if you don't have something reliable and steady, somewhere in there, you're not honoring yourself. It's an eclipse. The messages are not going to be easy messages, right? Oh, all right. Libras, how can you honor yourself? And for Libra, by the way, this might be a very intense eclipse because it falls in your 7th house of relationships, and you hate conflicts, and you hate, things having to be confronted or difficulties in your relationships. And there's so much Aries energy. You might find it very tough with people for this eclipse. Something could come up that feels very upsetting or like a rupture to you. It doesn't have to, but you have to, again, take a look at, was this building up over time? Can you be honest if it was or if it wasn't? So let's pull a card for you. How can you honor yourself more? And you've got the Peace card, the Moon in Libra. Well, that would mean that in order to honor yourself during this time, you need people that are peaceful. So even if there are conflicts or old things to resolve, or something comes up that you didn't expect, it can be done in a diplomatic and gentle, fair way, right? It doesn't have to be done with aggression. But usually peace, this is 2 swords coming together, making peace. So is there anyone you need to talk to resolve something with? Any amends to be made? If somebody seems like just rangy and crazy and angry and you just don't want to deal with it, then you wait and present things calmly and ask them to be calm, So you need to honor your need for things to be peaceful, but you also can't bury your head in the sand about stuff either. When Aries is forcing whatever differences or long-standing problems to come up to the surface, you can't run, but it doesn't have to be done in some nasty way, right? Scorpios, what do you need to do to honor yourself more? Get the 7 of discs. Saturn and Taurus. Well, this is a card about, the card says failure, which you are not, but maybe you're struggling with feelings of failure. This is also a card of trust. It comes up, I find, a lot when there is a lack of trust. And it can be difficult, right, for Scorpio to trust. When you're all in and you know that people are at the level of depth and consciousness that you want, and you can count on them, then you'll attempt to trust them. But trusting's not easy for Scorpios ever, I don't think. But that would be how you would expand your sense of self, is take a look and see, like, how guarded have you become? Saturn in Taurus is also about values. It's about self-worth. Ultimately, Saturn in Taurus needs to know, understand their own self-worth. And I'm going to get real psychological here, but if you have trouble trusting others, or you're defensive, or people are always betraying you, or you're on edge watching to see, can you trust them? That's actually about you, not them. If we're really honest. What is it that made you scared to trust? Somebody that is secure with themselves can open themselves or open their hearts, even if it's just crack by crack, and trust. Somebody that values themselves isn't constantly worried they're going to be screwed over or betrayed. Why? Because they have enough self-esteem to say, no, this isn't how I'm going to be involved with life, or with this isn't how I'm going to be treated. No, I deserve better than that. And they'll walk away, and so they won't go down this dark web where they can be mistreated. You know, that's somebody who's lacking their self-worth, who gets down that well so far. So this is really like, you know, it matches the message totally of the eclipse. It's about your self-worth. Are you valuing yourself enough to open yourself up a little more? Sagittarius. How can you honor yourself more? Six of Swords. It says science, Mercury in Aquarius. Well, Mercury in Aquarius is very intelligent, innovative, thinks differently than most people, speaks differently than most people. Also sort of synthesizes things, is going to be more inventive or original, and also more emotionally detached. So for Sag, I'm getting a feeling like the way that you honor yourself more is to sort of remove yourself from anything where you feel like you're too entangled with other people's emotions or energy. If it's bogging you down and pissing you off, it's about like pulling backwards, being more detached and seeing the bigger picture. And even though it's Aquarius, a planets, it's still, you have things in common with them, like you want to be always breaking new ground and doing something more expansive as well. So, but as a fire sign, you want everyone to be passionate and believe that you know what you're saying and follow your lead and stuff. So you can gather that sometimes, followers, or like people that, you know, want to do your projects behind you or believe in what you're saying. But Aquarius is different. It doesn't care so much what everybody's thinking, or if people follow them. So that would be the area where you could like let go of a lot of intensity in your life, is like, if people like your idea, great. If they don't, great. If they follow you, great. If they don't, so what? And just focus on what you would like to build, and don't worry so much about the minutiae of people. Interesting message. All right, Capricorn. So for Capricorns, it can also be an intense eclipse. For Cancer, for Aries, obvious. Cancers, Libras, and Capricorns, it's an intense eclipse because it squares the signs. And therefore it activates houses that are very pivotal in our lives. So Aries is going to activate the career, excuse me, and public image for a Cancer. Libra, as I mentioned, it's going to accent the relationships and partnerships. And for Capricorn, it's going to accent family, your home and your family. So that being said, you have the Empress. How you can improve your sense of self would be to embrace the Empress, embrace your, oh, pardon me, embrace your feminine energy, embrace the side of you that is nurturing to others. So not this gung-ho leadership person, or this control top down, I'll tell them what to do, or this detached corporate person, or this, I'll be Mr. Practical or Miss Practical. This is about guiding and being gentle, being more motherly versus fatherly. You can see it as father though, but just see it as a gentle father. And so how would that expand your sense of self is that you can soften and still realize that you're just as effective. You can have a softer energy, which is less intense on you, and still have the same or maybe even greater impact. So let's say you're a Capricorn who's dealing with someone difficult at work. Your natural inclination might be to just sort of pull back, be more poker face, just head to the, pedal to the metal, get the work done, and try to shut people out a bit. But this is saying, don't do that. Soften the approach. Offer a compliment to the difficult person if you can. Bring a coffee to the team, even though they're annoying you a bit. Show a gesture of grace. Don't shut people out, which feels pretty opposite to what you probably want to do. But the Empress is where you're going to see the growth. So by being true to yourself, well, the other is a protective mechanism. It's a defense mechanism, right? Staying open and say, okay, somebody's bugging you, instead of like, oh, it's like, okay, no, open up and guide this person instead. Open up and be generous instead. You grow because deep down, that's the world you'd want to live in anyway. You don't want to be in this harsh defensive bubble. You want to be in a nicer world. So without letting people step on it, obviously, if people take advantage of it, you stop it. But there are going to be some little windows where you can show this side and things will soften and be nicer for you. Gosh, I'm sorry. I slept so much and I'm still yawning all week. It's really, that's how it's playing out for me. Bit of headache, bit of exhaustion. All right, so Aquarius, how's it going to play out for you guys? How can you increase your sense of self? Yeah, and we go back to the Prudence card. So you will honor yourself by being patient, by letting things build slowly, by spending time with the people around you that feel very solid and connected, because it feels like this plant or this tree, all the roots are entwined, all the leaves are protecting the flowers, and there's solid ground. So whoever's around you that is solid and protective, it feels like there's, they might be interconnected within your family or within things that you do. And it would be to just sort of slow down, take more time with them, be more patient with yourself, and let things grow very slowly and steadily, and seeing if whatever you're trying to do, whether this is people or projects, if there's a strong sort of root system to it. Because Aquarius can tend to just sort of stay in your head and float up here all the time. And you can get a lot done, but like sometimes maybe it's just on the idea plane and you have to like bring it down to the ground and test it and see. So you would increase your sense of self by trying to be a little more patient, a little more grounded, a little more, or maybe you're the one who's the leaf protecting the flowers around with the people around you, or maybe they're doing it for you. But there's a nice family camaraderie, caring feeling about this, which we don't usually think of so much with Aquarius. We think of Aquarius as like innovator and sort of detached, and you know, you do you and I'm off doing my wacky thing and you do yours. And so there's like a warming of the heart with this one for you. Aquarius would help you. And finally, last but not least, Pisces, what is your message? How can you increase your sense of self, Pisces? Luxury, Moon in Cancer. Wow. Pisces, you're already like a super feeler type of person, but this is sort of saying to let it flow even more. So I wonder whether you've been restricting yourself from feeling your feelings fully. And that can be, that's all range of feelings, not just one feeling. This could be letting your tears flow. This could be letting your joy overflow. This could be letting your love show on the outside or to others, to yourself. This can also be like luxury card, can also be like, you know, excesses in your life to take a look at. Because by the time we get to the Four of Cups, the Three of Cups is abundance, the Four is luxury. So what would be the difference between abundance and luxury? Do we need luxury to be happy? Is abundance not enough? So it just sort of asks you, is there anywhere in your life that you can think of where you're perhaps being excessive? Any area of your life. And if there is, if you're going overboard on anything, take a look at that, what's underneath that. Because that might be telling you something about yourself that's missing, that you need. You know, again, it's like compensation kind of feeling with the luxury card. Like if we think of anybody ultra rich, why do you need all that? What for? Do you need to accumulate more and more and more wealth when you already have a secure life where you can pay for your health care, your car, your shelter, your... Really? Do you need more? What's that compensating for, right? What is that? So we're not saying all Pisces are millionaires or billionaires here. They're not. But if there's something that you're doing or accumulating or that you can spot yourself doing to excess, to ask yourself, what is the excess trying to show me? And it can be hard to do that in that all of this inner work. It's hard looking at ourselves, especially with habits or long-term relationships that we're just so entrenched in, and to really step back and go, am I really being true to myself? Can really be a tough question, because we're all afraid of the changes that that's going to imply if we admit it. But for some of you, it's going to be subtle. For some of you, it's going to be urgent that you face whatever that truth is for your happiness, your health, for going forward in your life and being productive. So I feel overall a lot of healing breakthroughs coming with this eclipse period. but the brewing and the lead up to it has been quite uncomfortable. So I will just say it one last time. You'll need to take ultra self-care right now if you're feeling this way. Let yourself rest. Let yourself be alone if you want. Call out to a friend if you need. Don't let yourself go down some horrible thought path or depression. Reach out. And if you want to return to your spiritual practices, if you've been not doing them or it's been harder, great time to do it. Bring in as much light as you can right now before the darkness of the sun for those few minutes is upon us, so that you have your protection around you when it comes. All right, I wish you a healing time, and I am available to help you with any of this. If you're still here watching the video, I'm here to help. All right, we'll see what happens. We'll see you next time.